Welcome. This lesson is over how to find the parts of the whole. Let's look at our number routine. How do you know? If the monthly income of the Brooker family is $2,000, how much will they spend on food that is 25% of their budget? So if this is 100% and it's $2,000, what would 50% be? $1,000. So 25% would be $500. That's how I did it. Another way you could have done it, if you do not prefer this way, I break this into 10 equal parts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 10 equal section. Each section would be equal to 10%. What dollar amount would go in each 10%? $2,000, that's divided into 10 equal section, it would be $200. We're going to stop right here. 10% is $200. Another 10% is $200. 5% would be $100. So 200 plus 200 plus 100 is $500 or 25%. Many ways to do it. Or you could broke this into fourths like I just did. That's how I came up with 25% is $500. So here's a video.
How much was that again? 485. There's 5 and. Does it take much longer? I'm sorry. I want to give you a tip. It's just difficult to figure out what 15% of $4.85 is when somebody's looking at 73 cents.
So this video is from a TV. Oh, sorry. This video is a TV show that came from Taxi, a very old show. Some of your parents may have seen it. I didn't. I'm actually it's before my time also, but I know my parents. My father loved it. So he said, "What is 15% of $4.80?" So we're gonna find this out. Many ways you can do this. So this is 100%. This percent bar represents 100%. If I broke it into 10 equal parts, like so, then each section would be 10%. So $4.80, that's divided into 10 equal section. 10 goes in 48 4 times. 10 goes in 88 times. So every 10% represents 48 cents. 48 cents, 48 cents, 48 cents. So what dollar amount for each 10%? 48 cents. But we're looking for, 5%. So if 10% is 48 cents, that means 5% is half of it, or 24 cents. So it's about 72 cents. That is one way you can solve it. And then today we're going to be learning a more mathematical way to get this without drawing a strip diagram or bar diagram as such. So every 10% is 48 cents. Half of 10% is 24 cents. 48 with 24 cents makes 15% or 72 cents. So before we continue, this represents a whole. This represents a tenths. This represents a hundredths. Use the base 10 bucks to answer the following question. Tickets for the school movie night sell for $5 each. There is a 20% discount for purchasing movie tickets early. How much money will Charles save by purchasing a ticket early? So these represent wholes. So one whole, two whole, $3, $4, and $5. So there is a 20% discount for purchasing movie tickets early. So this represents one whole. Or another way to see it is 100%. So 20% of this represents one whole. 20% of this. 20% of this. 20% of this. and 20% of this. So what is 5 groups of, what's 5 groups of 20%? Or another way is, what's 5 groups of 20 hundredths? 5 groups of 20 hundred is 1 whole. Is it really going to be equal 1 whole? Let's see. 4, 3. Yep. It all fits in here. And that is. So how much money will Charles save by purchasing a ticket early? $1 or 1 whole dollar. So again, how did I do this with base 10 blocks? There are 5. Each whole represents $1. 1, 2, 3, 4, $5. And you save 20% of this, 20% of this, 20%, 20%, 20%. If you add up 20%, 20%, 20%, 20%, 20%, that's 100% of a whole, which is $1. Next example. Linda bought a lipstick for $4. So this represents 4 whole dollars. She saved 10% by using a coupon. So I'm showing 10% of each whole. How much money did Linda save by using a coupon? So she saved, there's 4 groups of 10%, or 4 times, and how do you say this as a decimal? 4 groups of 10 hundredths, or 40 hundredths, or let's see, dot, dot, dot. What's 40% of a whole? 40 hundredths. So how much money does she save by using a coupon? She saved 40 cents. Next one. Alice spent $8 at Perry's Steakhouse. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. She tipped the waitress 25% on the $8 bill. So in this one, she tipped 25% of this whole dollar. That means she tipped 25% of this one, 25% of this dollar, 25% of this dollar, 25% of this dollar. She tipped 25% of this dollar. She tipped 25% of this dollar, and she tipped 25% of this dollar. So in other words, she tipped 8 groups of 25%, or 8 times 25 hundredths, and 8 times 25 hundredths, I believe, is 2 whole, or $2. Yep, 25, 50, 75, 100%. 100, so it was 200% of a whole, that's 2. And our last example, the tax rate for El Largo, Florida is 12%. If you buy a $6 shoe as such, find 12% of each dollar. So here's 12% of each dollar. So that's 12% of each dollar. So, whoops. What's 12% of this dollar? 12 hundredths. What's 12% of this dollar? 12 hundredths. What's 12% of this dollar? 1200. What's 12% of this dollar? 1200. So 6 groups of 1200 is 7200. So that's how much tax will you save? 72 cents. So now that we have that, and you understand that, you are going to be practicing more with cubes on your own. You're going to take out 4 cubes. Show me that 75% of the cubes are purple. Can you show me that? Well, I know more than half of it, so if I have 4 cubes right here, more than half of it has to be purple. Not all of it, but more than half. Would this equal, let's see, 3/4. I build that to 100, that's times 25 is the scale factor, so 75%. Hey, it works. Take out 10 cubes. Show me that 40% of the cubes are orange. So is this more than half or less than half? Well, it's probably going to be less than half. It is 40%. So let's see, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, but it's going to be less than half, so I'll take this one away. So let's see if this one's work. 4 orange out of 10, and there are 100%. The scale factor is times 10. That's 40%. It worked again. Take out 20 cubes. Show me that 40% of the cubes are yellow. That means a little less than half of it will be yellow. So if there's 20 cubes, half of it is 10. So it can't be 10 yellow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'll do 7 for now and see if this works. And that means there should be 12 of these. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, 12. Let's see if this works. 8 yellow out of 20 cubes, build it to 100. That's times 5 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. What? Sorry, there's only 7. 7 yellow cubes times 5 is 35%. No, I'm looking for 40%. Oh, that means I need 8 yellow out of 20. I build it to 100%. Times 5 is 40%. 100 is the same thing as saying 40%. And we're going to skip this one. So what we are going to be learning something is called part to whole equal percent to 100. This is called our percent proportion. We're going to use this to solve this water park problem. Market researchers estimated that 70% of junior high students in the United States own a mobile phone. There are 300 children who are junior high students at Typhoon, Texas today. How many of them would you expect to own a mobile phone based on statistics? We're going to use this percent bar to solve the problem. So in this percent bar, we need to shade in 70% of it. So what can you tell me if it's 70%? And there's 300 students. Will there be more than half of them or less than half of them on a cell phone? More than half. So let's make a prediction. Half is 150. So our answer has to be more than 150. So if you color in this whole bar, it'll be 100%, but only 70% of this bar is shaded in. Now let's find the scale factor. To turn 100 to 300 is times 3 times 3. That's 210 students out of 300, which is 700, are have a cell phone. So that is using part to whole, and percent 100. So 70% are shaded out of 100, and the whole thing had 300 students. That's one way you could do it. Some people can do mental math. I still want you to show your work, but some people can do mental math. This represents 100% right here. 100% of 300 is 300 students. What would 10% be? Each one of these sections represents 10% because you divided 100% by 10. So if you have 300 students and you divide them into 10 groups, that means there will be 30 students that equal 300. So what would 5% be? 10% is 300. 5% would be 15 students. And what would 1% be then? If this represents 30 students and you have to break this down into 10 equal parts, or another way to do it is, if you had to break this 300 students right here into 100% or 100 sections, that would be 3 students. So some people can do it mental math. So let's see, how did I do it mentally? If 10% of 300 is 30, 7 groups of 330 is 210. Mr. Rouse surveyed his class of 150 students. That's everybody here. That's this whole bar, which is 100%. 8% like jelly bean. jelly bears. So that's like the small smidgen. How many students like jelly bears? So let's make a prediction before we even solve it. So it's less than half of the students, way less than half. 8%, I would say like maybe like 15-ish, like around 15, 20, like really, really small amount. So let's do the mathematics to find out what it should be. Can 100 go into 150? 150. Can we use our fast fact? Can 100 go into 8? Could we simplify this by divide by 2 to 450? Oh, now 50 can go into 150 times 3 times 3. So it's actually 12 students. So I was kind of wrong. So imagine that this whole thing represents 100% and it has 150 students in it. What percent would go in each section? 10%, because it's divided into 10 equal sections. So if you had 150 students and you divide them into 10 sections, that means there will be 150 divided by 10. I believe it goes in, there will be 15 students in each section, or 10% represents 15. Oh, sorry. Wait, stop. What's 100% of 150? That's the whole thing, 150. What's 10% of 150? 15. What is 5% of 150? 7.5. And what would 1% be? If there's 150 students and we had to divide this into 100 equal sections, 150 divided by 100 equal sections will be 1, and next decimal 0, 1.5. So every 1% represents 150. 2% will be 3. 3% will be 4.5. 4 would be 6.0. And 5% will be 7.5. So we can use mental math. Using mental math now, what would 8% be? Well, we know 5% is 7.5. 1% is 1.5. That'd be 6, 7, 8. So 7.5 plus 1.5 plus 1.5 plus 1.5 is 12 students. The school took in a $75 bake sale. That's how much money they made, this whole 100%. 68%, which is more than half, came from cupcake sale. How much money did the school make from selling cupcakes? So what's the relationship between 100 to 75? Can we use fast facts? Can 100 go in 68? No. Oh, maybe we should simplify this by dividing both by 2. So that's 3450. No, I think we need to simplify again. It's 1725. Oh, 25 does go into 75 times 3 is a scale factor. So 17 times 3 is $51. Now let's use mental math to help us. This represents 100% or $75. 100% of $75 is $75. What would 10% be? If each section is 10%, because I divide it by 10, what's 75 divided into 10 groups? 75 divided into 10 groups is 7. And next decimal 0, 7.5. So, or $7.50. So what would 5%? 10% is 750. So 5% divided by 2 is 3 times. 7 times. 5 times is $3.75. And what would 1% of $75 be? If this represents $75 and I divide this into 100 sections, can 100 go in 75? 0 times. Annex the decimal 0. Can 100 go in 750? 7 times. Annex another 0. Can 100 go in 500? 5 times. So each 1% is 75 cents. 5%, 75 plus 75 plus 75 plus 75 plus 75, or 5% is $3.75. And that is what we are learning today. We can do it mentally. We can use our percent proportion. What do you find easier?